right?
What's
Yes,
AIC? Oh yeah,
Athletic
I'm
Input
like out of it.
Council.
I'm like out of it. I don't know why.
What's your end, Sam? The Athletic Input Council.
I know it. I know what
Are
you're talking about.
Joseph?
I'm just out of it.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Alrighty, guys.
yeah. I sent Jason 2 videos through Messenger because my phone's acting stupid.
Cool.
All right.
And I sent my video to Adam.
Listen to Jason.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I see your video, so cool.
I'm gonna put you guys on mute.
Okay, me.
Alright.
Mute
us. Let's do it.
It's gonna go on the YouTube channel, by the way.
2, 1.
One.
Off you go.
Go.
Bye. All right. Let's see. We'll admit to that. We'll get Justin on here. Unmute.
Yeah, I was wondering if I had control of that myself.
I'm gonna make you co-host, so you will have control. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Wow.
I know the power is great. All right, all yours. See you later.
Are you serious?
No, I am
What
not.
do you want me to do? All right, everybody look at my cat again.
Okay, look at that.
Go ahead. You can go for a walk, buddy.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us tonight for another social club. Really appreciate it. Got a great guest on board with us, Justin Berk. I think I was going through your bio, and I think it's probably better if you give us your synopsis for yourself. I didn't know which stuff to pick out, so.
Oh, you're just being lazy. It's all right. Well, I gotta be out. My head was spinning, and I know you asked me for some stuff, and I was thinking to myself, when am I gonna get to this? So I'm glad Sharon at least dug into the website to dig up stuff on the Trek.
Yep.
That's a problem. I could talk forever, but I heard you guys asking some questions, so I figured I'll just jump right to it. When I grew up in New York, and you may hear me say words a little silly sometimes. That's just because I'm a New Yorker, and we talk that way. I had to work really hard to get rid of that accent when I was on television, but I'm not on TV now, so it's come back. I'm a meteorologist, so that means that I'm a scientist who studies the weather. Not all meteorologists work on television. A very small portion of them do. I did for 20 years. I went to school in upstate New York at a place called Cornell. I worked my first job on TV in Syracuse, the snowiest city in the country. My second job was in Binghamton, New York. And in the year 1997, I moved to Maryland to work at WBAL. And worked at WBAL for 5 years. During that time, I became a college professor, and I started teaching at what was then Village Lee College, now is Stevenson University. And in the year 2003, I moved over to WMAR, ABC2, where I spent 9 years. And also during that time, I had done a radio show on WCBM with a guy named Tony Pan, who is at WBAL now. So you may be familiar with him. I left TV in about 2012, and I've been working on my own ever since. I reach more people on the internet than I ever did on television. That has allowed me to do lots of fun things. I have education programs where I go into schools and I talk about the weather. I have a program in the winter where I talk about my favorite subject, which is snow. And I have a program in the spring and the fall that's about severe weather. I have sold some products. Some of you may be familiar with my, do I have something here? I thought I did. Well, have you ever heard of Faith in the Flakes? Faith in the Flakes.
I follow you on Facebook.
Yeah, well, Faith in the Flakes is actually something that started with my son when he was just a little kid, and we missed a snowstorm, and a conversation we had about missing the snowstorm didn't mean the whole winter was going to be a miss. And he is the one that came up with the phrase Faith in the Flakes when he was about 3 or 4 years old. We got our snowstorm 2 weeks later, and ever since we kept saying back and forth when there was a chance for snow, we've got Faith in the Flakes. And it grew into this movement where people convinced me to start putting it on t-shirts. And then I started this product with a friend of mine called Snow Sticks, where we make these big giant rulers. This one has the Maryland flag on it because the Maryland flag is awesome. And that's some of what I do. I also consult with snowplow operators and some schools to help them make the decision on whether school can open or should be closed or delayed because of bad weather. And sometimes I work with other companies that need weather advice for whatever they are doing. And I think that pretty much covers just about everything. The thing I have on my shirt, and Miss Sharon Perfetti, are you still there? I'm looking on the screen.
Here, I can, let me unpause Sharon so she can respond
You move the
appropriately.
box. Did she get bumped to page 2?
Below the fold. I cannot
Oh my
unmute her.
gosh.
Okay,
Yep.
Sharon, you're good.
Hello.
Hey, Sharon. How many of you know Sharon? Raise your hand. If I can't hear you, raise your hand if you know Sharon Perfetti. Sharon Perfetti is an awesome person. Sharon Perfetti and I became friends. Gosh, it's been over a decade when she was working with a charity, and I started doing some work with them, helping to raise money and programs for kids that are really, really sick. And, well, we both left that organization. I started my own nonprofit, and Sharon actually helps my wife and I with the programs that we do with a nonprofit called Just Empower Kids, where we also raise money to help kids in cancer treatment to try to feel better and help them get better faster. And the thing on my shirts is the Maryland Trek. I don't know if you can see that logo there. That is an event that I do every summer. Raise your hand if you're an athlete, if you play sports. That's what I figured. I kind of had a feeling here. So I'm talking to my people. Well, every August, I do an event where I start at the only ski mountain in Maryland called Wisp. Some of you may have been there. And I walk 27 miles and I bike 14 miles every day for a week until I get to Ocean City. And I started that in 2014. And since then it has grown, and we have somewhere around 12 to 15 people that join us for the whole week, and other people that come in for individual days. And I will tell you right now, as one athlete to another, I sincerely miss being out playing with my friends. And if you're feeling a little bummed out because the weather's been so wet, or you haven't been able to play with your friends, I want to let you know I feel that too. So we understand each other. But we will be back playing with our friends soon enough. I do believe we will start to be able to play with our friends and do our sport once we get closer to summer. I'm positive. I believe in it. I'm going to will it to happen. Darren, you want to add anything now that I pulled you in and unmuted you? You dragged me into this. I'm dragging you into this.
Nope, nothing to add other than, the fact that, we originally set this up to be a weather conversation, but then kind of realized halfway through, like, well, wait, you do all of these athletics yourself. So that was a great tie-in.
Well, forgive me, because honestly, I actually thought it was about the Trek and Special Olympics until I reread the email and realized, oh, I got to grab some weather stuff. So
yeah, because everyone loves the weather.
If we get there, I got some weather stuff. So go ahead, Jason. You're driving, man.
All right. So let me scroll back because I think we already have some questions, which is fantastic. Let's see here. Scrolling. Put your hands up. Okay. What is your favorite part about being a meteorologist? From Sam Livingston.
All right. I want to look at Sam so I know where he is, and you may have a different order than I do.
I will spotlight him for you.
Oh, you can. Awesome. What up, Sam?
I'd
like to know who I'm talking to. What is my favorite part about being a meteorologist? I get to talk about the weather all the time. It's like I'm supposed to talk about the weather.
Awesome.
I'm talking about the weather. But I love all kinds of weather. Winter is definitely my favorite season. What I do love is that I've studied the weather enough to understand it so that, look, no one's perfect. And I'll be the first one to say there's sometimes I get it wrong. But if I can understand how the weather's going to behave and I can explain that to people to help them prepare. A day like today, I knew with pretty high confidence. I felt pretty strongly about the fact that we were going to get heavy rain and the times it was going to be really heavy and how windy it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Then when I tell other people, let's say yesterday or the day before, they won't be surprised and they can prepare. So that makes me feel pretty good when I get to help people out with their plans. Good question, bud.
Good question, Sam.
I got one more question before you mute me, Jason. I was actually doing a little research on you guys, and I saw Justin Power Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Can you actually explain a little bit about that?
Well, that's a nonprofit. And it's funny, I'm looking around here and I don't even have a logo of anything other than maybe the one that's on my bracelet. Let's see if you could see. That's my Maryland track. Hang on. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
There is Justin Power Kids. And my Faith in the Flakes. I wear my stuff all the time. In fact, on my other wrist, I have bracelets from a whole bunch of kids from our nonprofit. So I always remember them and I carry them with me to let them know that, I'm with them in whatever they are trying to do to get healthy and get better. Justin Power Kids is a nonprofit. The name has my name in it. And it's a combination of my name, Justin, and my wife's business called Integrated Wellness. She is a physical therapist, and we want to empower kids. Now, the word empower is actually spelled differently, but we try to play off of the sounding there to give the notion that we are trying to empower kids who are sick, that maybe with the right mix of a positive attitude, maybe some natural remedies, healthier food, some of the other programs that we can provide and that my wife can provide, along with their doctors, may actually get them better faster. That's pretty much what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And Miss Sharon Perfetti, who I still see on the screen, is a big part of helping us with the business angle of it, because it is not easy running a nonprofit. You may think, okay, charity, people are going to give us money and then we're going to spend money. No, you've got to keep really good records about what you're doing. You've got to have a really good connection and communication with lots of people. Sharon is one of those people because she has been working in charity much longer than I have. So we rely heavily on her knowledge of how the business part of that works, and even some of the connections with the hospitals and some of the families. And I didn't expect this to be the Sharon Perfetti show, but I'm okay with it.
Deflect.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, Justin.
Oh, thank you, man. Good questions.
I'm going to get back on mute.
You gonna mute yourself? All right.
You might want to do me, because just in case I accidentally.
Yeah, done. Like, I wouldn't even let you finish your sentence. Okay. Elena Camacho from Anne Arundel County. Do you have to undergo any training or studying of classes in college to become a meteorologist?
Yes, a lot. I studied a lot of math, a lot of science, and a lot of math-based science. Oh, my kids are here. You want to meet them real quick? Come on, guys. Just come on in here. Real quick. And I don't know if we can go to the full, I'm going to go to the full gallery here because they haven't, look at all the people that are here. Wow. Yeah. And now we can pull back to speaker view. Yeah, that's Brendan. Brendan, step out for a second. I want to show you something. And Sharon, you haven't seen this. This is Alex. Alex is 10 years old. He is in 4th grade. Brendan, you want to step back for a second, bud. Step back toward the flag.
Too tall.
Well, just wait. That is my son. He is in 8th grade. He is 14 years old. I'm not kidding. Can you lean down and show me your face?
No, I can't.
He hasn't had a haircut in a long time. Come on down, bud.
We're all feeling that, aren't we?
Do we hold on, do we have any 8th graders here?
I bet not. So
I don't think so.
Judging by our crew, so.
Yeah, I wasn't sure of the age group here. Well, I told the kids that I wanted them to come down actually because they are both athletes. Alex right here is a baseball player. He's a really, really good baseball player and pitcher. And he had gotten drafted in our little league to the National League, which are the better players. And I think we're just about to meet with our team and have our first practice, I think, a week after the quarantine started. So he's been bumming about not playing sports. Brendan here, he runs track. He actually was doing really, really well, running a lot with the team, and very excited to start his year because he hasn't run track before. With all that height, he's actually really, really fast. And also kind of bummed that he wasn't. I'm putting words in your mouth. Are you bummed that you're not running?
Yeah, I just said that.
Come on in, Fraser, so they can see you.
I'm
It's right there. We're using that camera. So these are my kids. These are the guys that keep me sane. And because we've been quarantining together, we can actually, hang out and hug each other.
Yeah, there's silver linings, right?
It is. Well, I'll tell you, and I don't know how many of you are maybe with your brothers or sisters, but if you're stuck in the house and you get to play with them, even better, because they have each other to play with, which has been a really, really good blessing. Because there's only so much that I could do to entertain them. So when they go out and play ball together, it's kind of neat that they sit together and do their distance learning on the computers, and they play video games. Any of you guys play video games?
And what do we got here?
And wait, what are you playing now?
I'm nothing right now.
What were you playing today?
It's not a popular game. It's called.
They may know it.
No.
They may. Is it something I can't know about?
No.
Yeah, this happened with Alex on the we did a live broadcast this morning, and he wouldn't tell me what game he was playing, which has me really nervous.
So we had Sam on our crew, said Assassin's Creed and World of Warships.
You play that?
Madden.
He plays Madden.
Yeah, he plays.
Alex plays Madden and MLB The Show, but you guys have been playing. Is it Overwatch?
No, I don't play that anymore.
Well, I don't know what you play. I think I should know now. Can you tell them?
Well,
No, I guess he doesn't want to be on the spot.
All right.
Conversation we're gonna have in a bit. What were you playing all day?
I wasn't even playing all day.
What were you playing on the computer before? Fortnite. Who plays Fortnite here?
And let's get the big picture.
No Fortnites?
Got a couple.
I
two,
used
three.
to.
Okay.
Yeah, about a half dozen.
A couple over there.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay. So anyway,
All right.
yeah, cool.
All right, guys. I'll let you off the hook. Unless you can hang out if you want. If you want to go, you can go. All right. Thanks. Okay, go get a drink. Thanks for coming. See you guys. Miss you already.
Pretty good.
Now
All right.
I really have to know what game they're playing.
Yeah. Can you? You'll have to report back to Sharon so we all know. So.
Yeah, right. All right. So what was the other question? How much? Yeah. So I had to study a lot of math and science. It's not easy. One of the things about meteorology, I will tell you that of all the people that go into school to study meteorology, half of the people drop out the first year because it's too hard. And we don't really get to the really fun stuff until the third or fourth year of college. So I was having a tough time my freshman year because it was much harder than I expected. I'm glad I stuck it out. Most of the stuff that I had to learn, the computers get to do for us, but we had to understand how that worked so we can understand what the computers couldn't do and what their limits were, which helps us understand the weather patterns a little bit better. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, Elena.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Justin.
You're welcome.
And the sport I'm really missing doing right now is swimming. And another thing I'm really missing, if you can tell by my shirt, torch run.
Yeah. I feel you. Have you run it all in your neighborhood?
I try to.
Okay.
But when this is all over, I'm definitely getting back in the pool to get some much needed swimming in.
Oh, definitely. I hear you. We have a pool in the backyard, and I was wondering even if we're going to open it this year. My boys love to swim. It's definitely too cold to swim now, so it must be an indoor pool that you're at, right?
Yep.
Or you're really brave.
No, actually, I also do master's swimming, and my coach, he sent out an email asking, would any of you consider doing open water swimming? And the closest I get to doing that is the polar bear plunge in January.
Yeah. And did you actually swim when you do that, or you just jump in and jump out?
I usually swim out all the way out to the divers.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. I did the plunge once, and the water temperature, I think, was 34 degrees that year. And one thing I remember is that I ran in and I dove underwater, and it felt like there were 1,000 knives stabbing me all over my body, and then I went numb, and then you couldn't feel anything.
Yep, that's what it feels like every
It's
year.
not really as bad as people think it is, but I don't know if I'd be swimming out to the docks. So you're definitely braver than me.
Great. Thank you, Elena. Michael Schmidt would like to know if you get to stand in front of those animated screens with the rain and the cartoons and the maps on it.
I used to, and in fact, I was looking in some of my old work photos, and I couldn't find the Jennifer Franciati photo here. But I do believe, if you give me a moment, because I have a folder on my phone, I might be able to just hold this up for you. Yeah, so this was a picture at WBAL. And it's actually a blue screen or a green screen. It depends on the place. Usually they use green because if you're wearing blue and you're in front of a blue wall, it would actually make all of your blue stuff appear invisible. And that would be uncomfortable for a lot of people. But yeah, I used to do that. And it was really interesting because you never see what's behind you. You have to look at the camera in front of you, and it's actually a TV set that's underneath the camera. And if you noticed here, there's also a TV set on the wall. So when people turn sideways, they're actually looking not at the map, but they're looking at themselves in front of a TV set. Can you see that right there?
That must be take a while to get used to.
You know what? It's funny. It is. And then once you do it, it's sort of like, I don't know if you ever drove stick shift on a car. And you just don't think about shifting the gears after a while. The weirdest thing is that everything is in reverse. So, you know, when you pull up a selfie on your phone, when you maybe in the monitor here, no, we're actually opposite here. Yeah. So when you hold up your left hand, it doesn't look like a mirror that has your reflection here. It's going the opposite direction. So if you were to hold up your hand right now and wave your finger around, you'll see it moving the opposite direction in front of you. So when you're standing in front of the map, you have to sort of make this subconscious, I'm going to step left, but on screen, I'm going right. And you get used to it after a while.
All right. Jason Kaufman would like to know, have you ever been in a hurricane or tornado?
Yes. Hurricane, yes. I used to actually go chase hurricanes down in Ocean City. It was pretty fun. The worst we had, at least the worst conditions I was in Isabel, Hurricane Isabel, which flooded out Baltimore, but in Ocean City actually wasn't as bad as it was up here. And then I was in Hurricane Irene. Hurricane Irene, the eye passed 15 miles east of Ocean City. And we were in constant 70-mile-per-hour winds for about 12 to 14 hours, which was really cool because it's just at that limit where it's really hard to walk, but it's not going to actually pick you up and blow you away. So that was fun stuff. Tornado. No one ever really talks about being inside a tornado. You want to be on the outer edge and just looking at it with great video. I've seen funnel clouds from a distance, but I've never actually seen a tornado touching the ground, throwing, you know, trees and cows up in the air. So that's still a goal to achieve, watching the cows fly.
All right, weather goals, right?
That's right.
Christine Town would like to know, how can you tell when the storm will get very bad? Like,
that's some of that is the science and the weather maps that we look at that tell us what's happening above the clouds at the jet stream. Some of that is maybe the time of day. If we're measuring the weather conditions, I just happen to have my thermometer right here. It's 56 degrees at my house. If we're measuring the weather conditions and we know the weather conditions have a certain temperature, a certain amount of moisture in the air, and the wind is coming from the proper direction. If we get enough sunshine at the right time of the day, that might mix up all the ingredients. And even though we wake up and there's no storm out there, it may grow a thunderstorm. So it's sometimes we're watching a storm, a big storm like today, that's coming from another part of the country and how it's going to track and reach us in what time. And other times we're watching for the ingredients, like I was just showing you, to maybe build a thunderstorm in the afternoon at the proper time. So each storm has its little, you know, nuances and different approach of how we look at it. And some people would say that we don't know what we're doing, but I think we're right at least 9 times out of 10.
Christine says that she knows there's a U.S. model and a European model used to predict weather. Which model seems to be more accurate? And then does the European model actually come from Europe?
Yeah, so it's the ECMWF. It's the European Center for Meteorological Weather Forecasting. That's what it stands for. And it is a collaboration between different countries in Europe. For whatever reason, their computer system And it is literally millions of mathematical calculations that seem to do a better job than the computer models that we use in the US. And there's actually more than just one model. The GFS is considered the main American model. There's a shorter range model, the NAM, the North American model, which is what I use often in short range forecasting. There's the HRRR, the HRRR, the high resolution rapid refresh model, which is really good for updating in really, really short term. So most computer models update roughly every 6 hours. The HRRR, in between those 6 hours, will update every hour based on what's happening. So it'll look at the radar, it'll look at the clouds, it'll take in all the observations from airports, even taking observations from airplanes that fly above, and adjust based on, let's say the storm said the storm, let's say the model said the storm's going to be here, but it actually ends up over here. Well, then this model is going to adjust where that storm is, and then how we're going to take everything on through. And you know what I figured really, really cool? I think I can do this if you gave me control.
Yep.
You are going to, no, you disabled it. You got to enable screen share.
I have to, my apologies.
That's okay, if you have that option.
I do. Let's see, Justin. Okay. Yeah, you should be able to now.
Okay, I'm going to show you one of the things that I look at. Tell me if you see it right now.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, that is one of my programs. This is called Radar Scope. This is Doppler radar. You can see the rain is mostly stopped. I can put this into motion. I can see how that rain has moved through and where it's traveling. This actually lets me look at some other stuff. Those are storm tracks. That let me swing this over and hook up the Philadelphia radar if it lets me. Right there. And sometimes the radar will actually, I could tap on this thing. I'm going to zoom in pretty close. That's the storm that's going to pass to the west of Philadelphia. But if I tap on this, it's actually going to, the computer inside the Doppler radar system will tell me where that particular part of the storm is going to be at 7:34, 7:49, and at 8:04. There's some heavier rain out there. And we can track how this stuff is moving. There's other things we can look, wherever you see that orange, that is some really heavy rain that just moved through Philadelphia. I can also look at, this is the velocity scan, little donut hole right there, which is measuring, so the radar site actually happens to be right here, where that little black hole is. And it is measuring winds that are coming towards the radar in green and away from the radar in red. So since the winds are actually moving like that, I can tell that there's that line that's roughly in relation to the radar that's moving towards is green and red is moving away. The other thing I can do is with this, that's not the one I wanted. You see where my donut is right there? Mm-hmm. So that spot in, that is north of Trenton, New Jersey. The winds at cloud level are being measured, if you can see that number, at 84 miles an hour. So this is a real time, that is some really strong wind, and that is a real-time tool that gives us a better understanding of what is happening with a particular storm. And a lot of different things we can look at besides just looking at rain. We can look at the wind. We can look at the, sometimes if there's hail or if there's snow, this system will allow me to look inside the clouds and see the difference between all of those. And now we're back.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Let me scroll up for a second.
I got it. Let's go then. You're ready, Jason.
I'm just gonna, we got into the videos and then we got into some questions. All right. Oh, Adam, I'm gonna unmute you. You had 2 questions, right?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Justin.
Hey.
I was wondering what, I know you guys can predict far out, but what is the Farmer's Almanac? Is that still used with you guys?
So meteorologists don't use those,
Okay.
but a lot of other people read them.
Okay.
I honestly, there's a formula that they don't give up. In fact, there are different almanacs, right? There's the
Yeah.
Old Farmer's Almanac. There's the original Farmer's Almanac. There's the Hagerstown Almanac.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of them, and they use everything from like sunspot cycles to the lunar cycle. I don't understand how that works. It's a completely different approach to the weather.
Yeah.
I will say farmers have been using some of these approaches for a couple hundred years, and they still grow stuff, so it works and it helps them. But I did read an article in one of those almanacs many years ago that one of the techniques, and I can tell you something kind of gross if you promise me you won't get freaked out. Okay, you're going to love this. Okay, great. So I believe it was Nebraska, and they would take the prize pig from the Nebraska State Fair, and they would slaughter it. And they would take out its spleen. The spleen helps her filter blood. And they would slice the spleen up into 12 sections, and each section represented a month of the next year. And based on the thickness and the length of each portion would represent the temperature and the rainfall or snowfall for the corresponding month. And that poor pig. But that was one of the techniques that for some reason someone thought, hey, this might work. I know the Farmer's Almanac sometimes can get storms right, and they could sometimes get storms wrong. They seem to get a lot more forgiveness when they call for a storm that doesn't happen. But when they get a storm right, everyone says the Almanac called it.
That's what I was here. Like people are always like, Farmer's Almanac, and that's why I was wondering about that. So
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, and I do write up a report every year when I compare at least 2 or 3 of them. And it is funny because I know the old Farmer's Almanac and the original Farmer's Almanac actually had 2 different calls for winter this year. So they both can't be right. And neither one of them said that we were going to get almost no snow. I don't know anybody who said that. It was a very sad winter for me and my snow stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
my other question was how far have you ridden your bike? I'm a cyclist. I love riding my bike. So.
Well, maybe you should talk to Sharon and see if you can join us on the Maryland Trek. The longest I've ever ridden my bike in a single day was about 60 miles. And that is the average 55 to 60 miles in the 4th day of my Maryland Trek. Over the course of a week, when I do the trek, from Sunday to the following Saturday, I'm biking an average of, I think 160 or 170 miles.
Nice.
But that's over the week with, walking / slow jogging or hiking in between. But a single day, 60 miles. What's the most that you've done?
About 65 miles with Jason there during the
nice.
83rd century. Yeah.
That was a century. Well, no, he's done a century.
Yeah, I've done the half century portion of the Civil War century.
Oh wow, and that's not an easy race.
About 3,000 feet of climbing over, and about takes about 4.5, 5 hours, depending on.
There are 2 of my friends from my trek that did that this year, and they told me how hard it was.
Yeah.
So I commend you. I'm not sure if I have the stomach to do those. I do a lot of hills, and I figure once I do it for my trek, I try not to go after them again.
I live in Frederick, so I ride up in the hills all the time. Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Very nice. Right there.
I see it. Oh, that's sweet. Wait, so is that carbon fiber?
Yep, it sure is. How did you know that, man? Wow.
I got to Trek Madone.
That's what I have. Yep. I have.
You got some racing handlebars on there. That's nice.
Yep. It's. I bought this 2 years ago after my other one snapped in half. I was riding. And, I had been riding it so much that it went.
That's a good looking bike.
Yep.
Maybe we will have to try to recruit you for the trek.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be difficult for you at all. Sharon, you're on it, right? A reminder.
All right, Adam. We'll get you lined up. All right, bike geeks. We're moving on. From Monique Matthews, have you ever had an on-air miscalculation with the weather, and how did you recover?
Well, I need an elaboration on that question. Miscalculation with the weather or just a
Yeah,
He's
let's.
unmuted.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Monique.
So, hi.
Hi.
I actually watched you from Channel 2, I believe, and I'm from Baltimore City. I'm also a Baltimore County track athlete, so it's killing me not running right now.
I hear you.
But
Wait, stop for a second.
with the miscap,
I want to know, what events do you run?
Chewy. Are you ready? Okay. So I do the mini jab, I do 3K shot put, I do the 100 meter, and I let off the 4x100 relay.
Oh, awesome. So I ran the 100. I ran the 100 and the 200. Those are my two events. That's okay. Good. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So when I say miscalculation, I mean sometimes when I watch other meteorologists, they go, well, I made a slight miscalculation with the numbers, or kind of like, I'll say with maybe both.
Okay. Well, so I've made mistakes before, and it wouldn't actually be like while I'm doing it. And if I maybe mispronounced a town, but if I said, let's say in the winter, that there's going to be 3 to 6 inches of snow tomorrow, and we end up with an inch of snow, I got to kind of explain myself. And I would do that, and I would explain exactly what happened. And either the storm was moving faster and it didn't, and it passed off to the east, or it was too warm and we wound up, whatever it was. I would definitely explain that. I was very, very, very firm that I wouldn't hide from a mistake. I've actually argued with producers, and producers are the people who are sort of they organize the show, and they're sitting in the director's room, and they're calling, which camera, and they help put the stories in the proper order. And them and even my bosses would be like, you don't acknowledge a mistake on the air. And I would say that people at home are not dumb, and they know you made a mistake. And if you ignore your own mistake, they actually get more angry at you than if you acknowledge you made a mistake and then try to explain it. Now, on the other hand, the other question I thought you were going to ask about making a mistake while I'm on the air. The very first time I was on TV, it was actually at college, and we didn't have wireless microphones. They were actually a really long cable. So I clipped it to my tie, really long cable draped down. I had to run it through my jacket, and it got wrapped around the leg of the chair. So as I stood up, yanks my tie, and I'm stuck.
Wow.
And I was nervous and sweating bullets and scared, and my voice was, we're having technical difficulties. and I recovered. But 2 years later, a few years later, I'm working in Binghamton, New York, and the remote control that I would hit the button to advance the maps dropped out of my hand. What do you do? I had to pick it up. So I just said, excuse me, and I went down and I picked it up. I grabbed my clicker, and the funniest thing is that it was snowing that day, and for months, no one knew anything about that storm and that I got the forecast right. All they'd said was, you're the guy who dropped the remote control on TV. And I already had a big goof a couple of years earlier, so when that happened, I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't get nervous about it. You just got to deal with it. It's life. So I've learned to roll with the punches when there's a big mistake. I think that's a big lesson for all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. Monique, thank you. Joe Wu, you are up next.
Okay. Hey, Jason.
Hi there.
I have some question to ask you, buddy.
Okay, I'm listening.
I have an allergy. Right now, the pollen, how high the pollen right now? So I have allergy.
You have allergies?
Yeah, he's asking how high is the pollen right now?
That's a really good question. So
yeah, I got you.
Joe, are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a page that I started with a friend of mine, and it's called Baltimore Pollen Counts. And
okay.
He reports the pollen every day. His name is David Kirkston, and he reports the levels of grass and trees and weeds and breaks them down into what types. And I know it's been really, really high. The one good thing about rain, rain takes the pollen out of the air.
Okay.
So for about a day, you should be good.
Okay. Also,
Okay,
I have
tomorrow
one question.
The sun's going to come back out.
Okay.
And-
I have other question.
Okay.
I have asthma.
Yes.
How do the hot temperature can go on wrongly?
How does the hot temperature affect the asthma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm not sure it's the hot temperature itself. You might be more sensitive to either how much moisture is in the air with the hot temperature or pollution. I know a lot of people with asthma, if there's lots of cars driving around and it gets really hot, the pollution just sit and build up. If it's windy, it helps to take the pollution away. So the temperature itself might not be what causes your asthma. It might actually be when it's really warm and humid, or if it's warm and it's not windy, so that all the junk, all the smoke that comes out of the cars doesn't get blown away. It sits in place.
Okay. Also,
Joe.
I want to take some picture with you. I'm gonna send to Jennifer Franciani for you.
Jennifer Franciani.
He wants to take pictures and send them to her.
Well, I was trying to find the Jennifer Franciani picture. She's a good friend of mine. We actually just spoke yesterday. Have you met Jennifer?
Oh, I took Joe off. Hold on.
It's okay. Hang on, Joe.
Go, Joe.
Joe, have you met Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, of course, yeah, she's been at the Plunge. She is one of the nicest people on the planet.
I love her so much. She helped me all the time.
Oh,
She's
that's
a great
fantastic.
guy.
Oh my gosh.
Great lady.
So fantastic. Well, you must send her a message and tell her that we spoke today.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thanks. I'm meeting you again. I'd like to meet you.
Okay, but yeah, definitely, Joe. We'll find a way to meet.
All right. Mary Condren, you have a question. Where?
Mary,
where'd you go? Let's find her.
I got her.
You got her.
I got it.
Okay, Mary.
I've been watching the weather all the time, and sometimes get everybody headaches and stuff. And I just want to know what the difference are about the weather, like what they do and stuff.
the different what was it? The different what about the weather?
About different types of weather.
Different types of weather. Do you mean that may give you a headache?
Yes.
Okay. Can I tell you? I have an old injury in my lower stomach, and I've been feeling it all day today. Some people, when they have sinuses, they're pain right there. Some people get it right there in their head. Really sensitive to changes in weather. We had a very strong storm today. So a lot of times when a strong storm comes here, the day before the storm arrives and the day after the storm arrives is when that might hurt the most. So if you had a really bad headache yesterday and today, you might feel a little better tomorrow. Hopefully you feel better over the weekend because the weather should be nicer, at least Saturday and part of Sunday. But when there's a change in weather, sometimes I'll tell you this, you might know the weather better than a weather person on TV because you might feel it before it actually happens, right? You sometimes can feel it in your head. You're like, something's coming because I got a headache again.
Yeah, because I've been watching the weather all the time, and I watch the news too.
Oh, the news. You need some happy stuff in your life. The news doesn't give you happy stuff, does it?
Yeah, I also watching like different types of weather's situations and stuff. Right now, Professional Olympics, I'm supposed to be doing swimming and cheerleading right now.
I really, really feel bad. You know, so I have a stepdaughter. I am going to try to, let me see if I can find this. Give me a moment because I am trying to find all of my favorite pictures. My stepdaughter is a cheerleader. And, I don't have the picture in here. I'm sorry. And I know she is missing cheer as well. But hopefully you find another outlet to cheer. Do you know what makes her happy? she dances. She listens to music and she dances in her room, and she pretends that she's cheerleading to the music she listens to. So it's
good. I'm a good dancer too.
Really? Well, I hope you've been dancing during this quarantine period, because that could definitely help keep you happy.
Yeah.
You know what else? I find that when you dance a lot, you get less headaches. You might have less headaches if you dance a lot.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks, Mary. Anastasia, you are up.
Then you have Faith.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Okay.
It's also a question / statement.
Okay.
So the statement is, sometimes the weather people say, like, it's gonna snow or it's gonna rain or it's gonna be sunny or something, right? A lot of times it doesn't happen. What do you do?
So where do you live?
In Anne Arundel County.
That's exactly why. So I'm going to tell you. Actually, I'm going to tell you why. Hold on. I need to grab the controls right now, if I can.
Yep, should still be open.
Okay. I'm going to go back to my radar, and I want to show you right now. Okay, you can see this, right? Let's zoom in a little bit closer. So if we just didn't even have the rain on here, I just wanted to show you. So you're in Anne Arundel County, which is right there, right?
Yes, Annapolis.
Now, right. Oh, Annapolis? All right. That's even better. First of all, Annapolis has some bubble over it where storms always miss. Well, you live right there in Annapolis. Now, right here on the map, this is the Chesapeake Bay. In the middle of winter, that bay, when it's not frozen, is actually going to keep you warmer. So it's actually warmer there than it is in Baltimore. And people in Baltimore also do television weather for people in Westminster and people in Frederick. These places here are a lot farther from the water than you are. So what is happening here? It is cold.
Columbia's a lie.
No, it's possible that it snowed there. It is possible that they get snow in some of these colder places, and you didn't know it because you are right here and it is just a raindrop. And that happens a lot. There's a really, really common barrier right there along the highway where it is warmer, all these places by the water, and right here and right there, it is colder, and they get more snow versus people who live where you live. So it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's just possible that it didn't happen at your house. And I know how frustrating that is, because you are not the first person. And I've had many, many people get angry with me and with other people because they didn't get snow at their house. Now, sometimes we're wrong. And sometimes I'm right and they're wrong. And sometimes they're right and I get it wrong. It happens. But it is very possible that a lot of the time, because you live in Annapolis, you're going to get less snow just because you live by the water and it's warmer.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, sure, as long as you're nice to me.
Oh, I'm very nice. Secretly.
Okay.
Anyways, so speaking of earlier, how you were saying that some people can tell the weather by certain like body and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did gymnastics and I broke my ankles. I actually had to get surgery on my ankle, on one of them. I actually might have a screw in one, so that's how I know that I can tell by sometimes when the weather is.
You feel it ache?
And yeah, like sometimes it hurts more than other times. Or like when it's like, even when it's like super, super hot, I can tell because I get like, it can be like 100 degrees out, but yet I'll get like a chill and I'll start to get cold. It's so weird. It's like, what?
So you don't need a weather person on TV. You can.
I don't. I'm literally in the weather person. I tell everybody else, oh, I already know what the weather's going to be like for the rest of the week. Don't watch the Weather Channel.
Anastasia, when I was a little boy, my grandma used to tell me that her knee would start to hurt before we get a storm. Any time of the year. In the summer at the pool, she knew a thunderstorm was coming. In the winter, she knew there was going to be a snowstorm. And she actually gave me this term that I used to use on television, and it was the Grandma Barometer. Because grandma could always tell when the weather was going to change. And then I realized, well, grandma's not the only one. There's other people like you who had surgery and like my pain in my stomach and even in my leg that I sometimes can feel. And I would trust that. If you know it, and we were just talking about that before, like Mary's headache. If you know what it feels like and then you pay attention to the weather, well, you could actually use that to your advantage and just maybe tell other people, I know a storm's coming because I feel it. That screw is about to pop out of my foot. That's good stuff.
Thank you, Anastasia. So Justin, can we build on that a little bit and talk about, are animals sensitive to weather in the same way that some people are?
Well, I think so. I mean, animals are sensitive, especially the ones that are outdoors, because that's what they do for a living. It's funny. There's actually, I think, a mom and dad bunny that are in my backyard. We saw them today. They might be nesting, and we might end up with a dozen bunnies in a week or two. But they knew a big storm was coming, and they found a spot that they never ever see animals, but they must have known the storm was coming, maybe feeling that barometric pressure and knowing that they had to take some shelter. Sometimes you see birds flying around. Actually, in the seasons, we often refer to the birds when they start flying south, when fall's coming in and winter's about to come, or when the birds start showing up at spring, that they pretty much have a better idea that it's warming up before we do. So, yeah, I believe that, definitely.
Okay. I think we have Faith and David are next. So, Faith,
Where's Faith?
Where are you, Faith?
I got it.
You got it. All right.
Hi.
Hi, Faith. Look, your name's right there.
Yay.
What's your question?
I just emailed it to you in the chat box.
In the chat box. Let me scroll up.
I didn't even know there was a chat box.
Oh, we've been talking about you all along here, Justin.
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute.
That guy won't shut up. How much longer? Nah.
Faith, I can't find it. Can you remember it?
What's your favorite weather?
See, Faith, you didn't need to send that to him. You did a good job asking me. And my favorite weather, and honestly, I am not kidding. My favorite weather, I have faith in the flakes. I love snow. No doubt about it. My favorite weather the entire year is snow. I even have a stuffed snowball that I throw around, and this one actually lights up different colors. I do. I toss a snowball to myself a lot when I'm bored. What's your favorite kind of weather?
Summer.
So I love snow. I actually like it when it's cool. I sometimes like these cloudy days when we're inside, but we've been inside so much. I am ready for summer myself. I want it to be warm. I want to be outside running and riding my bike and training like all of you for our sports because we've been inside way too long. So if it helps, if we could all collectively just cheer on summer, maybe we can get some warm weather to come here and stick around.
Yeah.
I'll try and send some from down here.
Our Florida guy, yeah. All right. Thank you, Faith.
Where in Florida are you?
About an hour from Tampa, Lakewood Ranch.
Okay. My parents are in Boynton Beach. I mean, they're south of you. But I know farther south, it's been really hot and it's been really dry.
Yep.
You guys are hurting for rain down there, and we have plenty to spare.
Mr. David Godoy, you're up.
Yes. Do you have any advice for somebody who uses crutches in a wheelchair when we go outside? What is the safest ways to hold an umbrella and like a poncho, and so you don't have to be in a rush to take the poncho out and the umbrella without losing your balance?
That's really interesting. I would say it's probably easier to hold the umbrella in a wheelchair than it is with crutches. You've got good hair, man. I say go out and get wet. You probably look good with some wet hair.
Thank
Throw
you so
a
much
hood
for the
up, take it off. It probably still looks good when it's all messed up. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know if there's really, I mean, how would you, and it depends on the kind of crutches you have. Do you have the kind of crutches that go under your armpits, or do you have the ones that grip around your wrist?
The ones that grip around my wrist.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how you'd hold an umbrella with that. Or you just use one crutch if you could walk with that. Or you find somebody really cute to follow you around and hold an umbrella over your head for you.
There you go, David. You get a groupie. Or
That's a good advice.
I'm glad. Yes, I'm a winner. I'm glad I could come through, David.
So there was an addition to the kind of the animal question. Why some dogs and cats and I guess general animals get really stressed during the thunderstorms.
That's so I've heard so many different answers to that. I believe that they are more sensitive to the vibration in addition to the sound. You know, dog whistles, you can blow and you won't hear it, but a dog can hear it down the streets. There's other sounds that come along with thunder and the crackling that we don't hear. We just hear a small portion of that sound spectrum. And also the vibrations, and it's possible that they just don't understand and they can't comprehend. It's possible with some animals that they had something scary happen that they associate with the noise from when they were a puppy. I had a big, giant dog growing up, about 125 pounds. And when there was a thunderstorm, he would run underneath my parents' bed and actually lift the bed up in the air with his butt because he couldn't fit under there. They have a product now, and probably a few companies have done this, but there is one company called Thunder Shirt, where they actually sell these shirts or vests that go around cats and dogs that use Velcro, and they wrap them really tight, and it does take the anxiety away. We have a dog that is a little bit hyper and a little sensitive sometimes, and without even the bad weather, put that on her, and she seems to calm down. When we were babies, our parents would wrap us in a really tight blanket. I don't know if you can picture a baby that has their arms like this or their arms on their side, and they're wrapped in a blanket so tight, they're called a baby burrito. It's something called a swallow. And babies, human babies, are really, really comfortable and feel secure when they're tight. And that's how we would used to wrap them when they went to sleep. I used to swaddle my boys in a really, really tight blanket so that their arms were at their side and they felt more comfortable to go to sleep. And maybe when you were a kid, your parents would tuck you in, and when tucking you in means to shove the blanket underneath so you feel like you're almost being hugged by a blanket. And animals are the same way. When animals were young and they were pups or they were kittens and they were in litters, they were actually anywhere between 3 and 6 or maybe 8 of them in a bunch, but they were on top of each other and they were all nestled against their mom. And sometimes being in a confined space makes them feel more secure because that's how secure they felt as kittens and puppies. So that's what happens when they get older. So if you notice that you have a dog or a cat that is really, really sensitive, I would look into that product called Thunder Shirts. If not, one way to show some love to your animal is when the weather gets bad, you actually hug them. And if you can actually sit down with them and give them a really tight hug and hold on to them, they should feel more secure and probably calm down a little bit.
Excellent. So, Justin, do you have time for one more question?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, Amanda Moore, I'm going to unmute you. Whoop, you got her already?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amanda. Amanda?
She may have froze.
Oh, no. I hate when that happens.
It's not that cold.
I give, I say, Tommy, stop telling me about the weather reports.
She broke up. I didn't get any of it.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, can you try one more time, please?
I the weather on my phone.
Yeah,
weather on my phone?
on your phone. Yeah, you got the weather on your phone.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay.
Was there a question about weather on the phone?
We have rain almost 11.
Oh,
Did you hear that?
I did not. I'm sorry, Amanda.
Oh, I'm
It
sorry.
says that the audio or your bandwidth is low. So if you can type it into the chat, maybe. But I'm afraid we cannot kind of hear all that noise. So we're up on the 8 o'clock hour, which kind of brings us to the close of the show.
Jason,
yes.
I just found the chat button. You guys have been talking this whole time.
We have. Yeah.
I saw 247 messages, and my old doggy Buster had a thunder coat. Michael, I just saw that. All right. Gosh, took me, I've been on Zoom before, but it took me an hour in this call to realize that.
We're very good in the chat group. It's a strong skill we all have now.
That's awesome. Hey,
Well,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for your time. We really appreciate that. And it's so weather's so important to our athletes, and obviously to the outdoor athletes as much as more than the indoor. But your explanations were great, and we really appreciate all your time. And we'll make sure Adam is riding with you next time you go tip to tip in Maryland. So.
I hope so. That would be awesome. I would love to have him join the team, even if just for a day. That would be. Hey, Jason, maybe you join us too.
I will give it a go. Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. I better get training though.
I see her holding the phone up. I think she's trying to show us her weather app.
Let's spotlight. Okay, let's spotlight Amanda. Oh, I can't even spot. Oh, hold on. Yeah. So yeah.
That's the radar.
So
I think that's what she's.
Oh, she just told me that she had it on her phone.
Yeah,
that's what it sounded like.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, now everybody's showing us their weather.
What's your favorite weather app? Might as well tell you since we're here. So.
It's funny. It's Radar Scope because I had the same thing I showed you on my computer on my phone.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
So I get to track the radar because the other stuff I may look for temperatures. I'll tell you maybe WeatherBug, the one that looks like a ladybug.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah. So I have that. I do like that one. But there's a couple others. It also depends. I mean, there's a hurricane tracker, and there's actually a tropical system in the Pacific. So we're getting close to hurricane season. So it's fun to track that stuff. Lightning detector. I do have the other Weather Channel, Weather Underground, AccuWeather, a whole bunch of other stuff that I could probably spend another hour with you. I have stuff to track the stars, Star Walk, and the International Space Station, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Seismology, so I can track earthquakes.
Wow.
It's amazing how much we have in our phones, and you wonder how we survived, 10 or 15 years ago.
It is so much power in a little device like that.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
crazy.
Spoiled.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to unmute people because there's always the long goodbye at the end of these.
I actually didn't feed my kids dinner yet, so I do have to run to cook them something.
Hey, bye, Jason.
All right. So,
yes.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, buddy. I'll see you soon.
All right. Hey, where's my stud?
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes,
Bye.
Everybody.
Justin.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Being safe.
I have a question.
Feed those kids. All right.
Somebody will ask you a
In the
question.
morning, Jason.
Hold on.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Someone will ask you a question.
Justin.
Okay. I think he is gone. So.
Let's go. Yeah. He's gone. Sorry, guys. Try next time.
All right.
Hi, Alan.
Hey, Jason.
Next time.
Yeah,
See you
next time. Yes,
Hey,
Elena.
Jason.
Elena, go ahead.
We had a dog, Billy. He
Uh-huh.
had a thunder shirt. We called it his Thunder Buddy, like from the movie Ted, if you ever saw that movie.
Thunder Buddy.
We even sang that song. I'm
Movie is
not
very
going to
fun.
sing it now because it's got some
Hold on,
Yeah.
Joe.
in it.
Yeah, save that for another time. Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
All right.
Jason, could you send me the link for the AIC training tomorrow? Or if it's tomorrow.
Training. What is tomorrow?
He's talking
Right,
about
Oh, training
It's the first.
about
The
our
first.
thing, Jason, the
Survey.
survey.
Oh, the survey. Yeah,
I think it's the first. I
Hey,
think.
listen.
9 o'clock, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure, but you sent me something about
I have
COVID-19.
Back to earlier.
Oh yeah, COVID-19.